What's up, Dragon Brood? So today we're going to start a new series of videos where I'm going to be interviewing retailers to kind of give them a chance to tell their story with all this coronavirus stuff going on and how it's affecting their business and how they're going to be able to move forward. I think there's a lot of stories to be told kind of behind the scenes with everything going on right now, and why not tell them and get them out there? And if nothing else, give these retailers a chance to really speak their story and get it out there to everybody. So our first interview this week is from Rob at Frogtown Hobbies from Ohio, and he's been around a little bit, and he's been in a little bit of a better situation to tackle this, but you'll get to hear it from his perspective and let him tell it from his complete point of view, because I think it's going to give you some interesting insight as we go through these interviews to see how stores of different sizes and different locations have to deal with the challenges that they faced and what are still ahead. But let me tell you a little bit about Rob's store. It is gorgeous. He's got an amazing storefront. He can host a huge number of players, and you can tell he puts a lot of time and care into the presentation of it. And this isn't a cheap operation by any means, but we'll get into that and let him tell his side of the story. But for now, let's just jump into the interview. Cool. So, hey, Rob, why don't we start by just talking about kind of how did you get into the game industry to begin with? Before or during, I guess, how you acquired your store.
Yeah. I think my path is fairly traditional in some sense. I was a gamer first. I dabbled in Magic. I was a teenager, got back into it in college, and then I was kind of like every F&M going Friday Night Magic, and kind of had that dream in the back of my head of someday I'll make this a business, and at some point then it was more like, okay, so the plan is when I retire, I'll start this business. And then, the more I got tired of more of the corporate world, I had a professional sales job. I realized, what am I waiting on? And so I started while doing the professional world, started doing online orders from my house. That was kind of when the evolution of, platforms such as Crystal Commerce and the ability for, just some guy to open up a store and start shipping inventory out of its house to individuals. So I tested around with that market with a friend of mine for about 2 years while still doing the full-time professional sales. And then, got laid off through, downturns in the economy, and kind of had to hit that crossroads of all right, well, am I going to do this? Am I going to is this something I'm really going to pursue? Because if I am, what better time than the present? And so we decided to go for it, and opened a brick and mortar store in 2014. Got a space that was large so it could run big events, but it was cheap because it was still trying it all out. And so because that, our demographics of the area that we were in weren't the greatest, but again, it gave us that first initial foothold. And then we just kind of were shooting from the hip from there.
Now, how difficult was that transition? Because you said you had a corporate job, then got laid off, because what I think a lot of people don't realize is when you start your own small business, you don't have the corporate backing to look out for you. You don't have somebody doing your research. You don't have insurance, so how did all that work for you making that transition?
I mean, honestly, I look back on it. I don't know if I would have done it if I didn't get laid off. It kind of was, because I had that security, I had that salary, the benefits, like you said, the insurance. That was stuff that you become very accustomed to, and it's scary not having those things. And so the layoff was what pushed me to say, all right, I think I had a friend of mine who was an entrepreneur himself, and they said, look, everyone thinks they're safe in some sort of corporate job, but the fact of the matter is, just like yourself, you can get laid off, downturns in the economy, eliminations of positions. And so, your job's always at risk, whether you're working for someone else or you're doing it yourself. And if anything, you get more control by being the one that's, running the business.
What would you say is probably, or was, I guess, the biggest hurdle in the beginning that you may not have known about?
I think that's kind of exactly it. Is what I didn't know was the hardest thing, because there was just so many different things that I didn't have any idea about. And until you cross that threshold, you don't even know you're making that mistake until, you've done it every time. You go, oh man, like, look at that, look what happened. One of the biggest ones I would say, and this is an ongoing issue, is that we're more than just a trading card store. We try and be involved in a little bit of everything. And so, like, when we very first opened our first brick and mortar store, we said, okay, well, we got to have board games, right? And we literally just, again, shot from the hip and was like shotgun approach, just ordered all sorts of random things that we thought were neat. But the fact of the matter is, we didn't have an avenue for them. We didn't have a customer base that was established for that. So, one of the tricky things is a new game comes out, whether it's a living card game or it's a something that you carry more than just like a single product, something you actually have to carry a line. And we want to be known as the place that has those new things. But I've also found time and time again, a lot of times they can be a flash in the pan. And so having like a good entry and exit point on those is critical. Because I have several games I could list that I probably lost just as much as I had sold over the period of time that that it was hot. I think Force of Will is a classic one. We were selling. There was a point when we were selling more Force of Will boxes than Magic boxes, but at the end we got stuck on a multitude of boxes, and we were also doing inventory on it, and so we got stuck on a lot of inventory for it. So it was fun while it lasted, but we didn't exit in the right way, and basically got burned on it. And so that's happened quite a few living card games, stuff like that. Some of these smaller community games, they can come and go real quick.
Yeah, I think that's tough for people to understand, that you can look and see numbers being big, but you don't know if that's going to last 60 days or 6 years. I mean, like anywhere in between. And those evergreen products are really what carry you through most of the time. Yeah, let's cover some more current stuff here. Obviously, with the whole coronavirus thing, that's really affecting everyone's business in some way, shape, or form, it seems like. So when all this news started coming out, how were y'all initially affected, and kind of when did things start to change for you and Frogtown?
Yes, I mean, at first, like everyone, it was kind of like, okay, is this going to be a week, 2 week, this sort of thing? And so I think the first week we went with sort of before we were mandated, we went with like a partial shutdown where we closed all of our gaming area, folded up all the tables. That's where you see kind of the area behind me, and a little bit more to the other side is our gaming space. We can see 160 people in our store. So we folded up all those tables and we restricted just our retail area. But then, like everyone, things escalated quickly. The following week, we closed the store completely, and then we went completely dark for, I believe, 1 week before then we got orders back up and running. I didn't want to fall on the wrong side of history, and so I tried to be safe and didn't want my employees to feel unsafe. But basically, we got orders operating in a way that it was one person in the store at a time, and we're still able to kind of not completely shut things down.
Now, I would say this has been kind of an interesting time for a lot of game stores, because they're kind of learning how to do new things in business that, I mean, some arguments say maybe they should have been doing it to begin with. What have you done as far as like online orders, delivery, whatever, to kind of adjust to all this and keep your business going?
Yeah, I mean, it's I've been seeing a lot of stores who are just getting into the singles market for the first time, and like, wow, I would hate to be kind of thrusted into that in this sort of time, but hey, people got to do what they got to do. Fortunately, we've been doing that for a long time. However, the one part of the business that we always kind of neglected was, how do you ship something bigger than a card? And the reason is, it's hard to compete with an Amazon. Like someone Googles it, they're just not going to find the same price for us. There's very few that can, the cool stuff Inks of the world, that they're really pushing that volume. But for us, we realized real quickly there was people locally who would still want to buy from us, but in this situation, we need to ship it to them. So hasn't been a ton of it, to be honest. I mean, we haven't done a ton of these outside of the normal, card sort of shipping, but we did have to say, okay, we are going to do this. This is something we're going to like open ourselves up to, and it's it's not an easy thing. It can be intimidating because there's just a lot of, again, those unknown variables, the things that you don't know that are going to like bite you in the butt.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that because this kind of brings up my next point: is how has your community responded? I'm sure you had a bunch of regulars that you see a couple times a week that you're not seeing at all now. So what are they doing, or how are they responding to your new efforts to still support you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a mixed bag, so to speak, because I have had a handful of people that have like really went out of their way. There was a local T-shirt company that did like a promotion where they were allowing people to like order T-shirts for whatever business it was, and then a portion comes back to us where we don't have to touch it. There was a little gamer that did a charity program, and he without much work on our end at all was like, I'll make you one of the sponsors, and I'll go out my way and buy a gift certificate off your website. So a handful of like little touching things here and there. But I will say, in general, it's been hard to stay connected to people, and so it's hard to say exactly how it's impacted everyone. I'm sure there's going to be tons of stories when people start getting back together. And we've tried to do our best efforts. We're better than a lot when it comes to social media, but we're still not a powerhouse when it comes to social media. I made a little bit of special extra effort when it came to trying to share content and that's in our world, and have engaging posts, where people can talk about things and try and keep things connected. Magic really pushed people to kind of get their discords working, and we've done that.
Yeah.
But still nothing that's even close to, hey, it's Tuesday night and it's standard, and you got 6 to 12 guys that are here regularly that want to talk about their latest deck or the latest article that came out or this and that, and kind of all that sort of interaction. We're just totally missing. It feels like a vacuum.
Yeah, and you obviously did a lot of organized play for everything, being able to seat that many people. Like, without giving me actual hard numbers, roughly like what percentage of your business has been lost, during these last couple of months?
Yeah, it's always hard to put a number on that, especially because the reality is we're not making a bunch of money off tournaments. We're making money by having people come into our store and being
Sure.
a patron, where they will sell us their cards and buy the card they need, and oh, I need a drink while I'm at it. So a lot of like little things, and it's hard to like really tie it all together. But I would say we're about cut in half. And it's kind of a hard number to put to it, but when you look at just raw numbers, yeah, it's about in half.
And you mentioned you've already cleared up your table space, and using just your retail space. How is that going to look going forward? Because I mean, right now it looks like we may not be able to have, gatherings larger than 20 people or so for the next couple months. What are
Yeah.
your plans to do with that space or moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, still a lot of it we're still playing by ear to trying to see, how quickly things rebound. What even when things are not mandated, like how comfortable are people? I did get a pretty strong sentiment in the beginning that 20, 30 somethings that may not have kids or something aren't as concerned about whether they get some cough or whatever. Maybe that's taken way too lightly. That's kind of how they look at it, and so they would probably come out. But again, the biggest thing with that when we have that conversation is then when you look at more of an aggregate level, like when we run, we notoriously ran Star City Games Open, or I'm sorry, Star City Games Invitational qualifiers. And you usually get around 60 to 100 people in here for that. I don't see those come back anytime soon, right? And then we were also hosting the qualifying events through Wizards directly as well. Who knows when those will be back? So it's a big empty space. You know, I it's a big part of our business plan that my location is it's in a good area. I have a lot of space relative for a retail space, and it's not on the cheap side of things as well as far as what you're paying for. And I have I'm fortunate enough to have a Amazon fulfillment center. If I look directly out my window out here, that is under construction. So I'm the closest business to that. That's they're talking by this fall, 1,500 people that are going to be employed there, making $15+ an hour. It's a huge opportunity, right? But fall seems like a lifetime from now. So a lot of it is kind of wait and see, and then trying to improvise, because when it's all said and done, big empty space doesn't do me a lot of good when everything else is kind of set up. It'd be different if I had a cramped back room that my employees couldn't hardly process orders at. I don't have that. I have an orders department. They have ample room. We have a pretty substantial inventory system that reduces our footprint there. So quite frankly, it's an empty room, and we're going to have to probably get creative to figure out if and when how that's going to be utilized.
Yeah, and I think that's you bring up a good point that I don't think the average customer realizes how expensive it is to operate a good sized space in most cities, honestly. And not just that, you're also talking about your inventory, your employees, shipping supplies, all those go into those expenses. And I think it's really hard for people to grasp how many little things you have to pay for month to month. And when you're saying your sales are cut in half, that's a huge hit to your budget.
Yeah, I'm not one really to disclose a lot of the financial aspect.
Oh, sure. I definitely would not ask you to.
because I don't think it looks great. But I will say, in the past month or so, I've shared that number with more people than I probably had, the whole other remainder of the lease. And every time, people are downright flabbergasted of how much money it takes to rent, a 4,400 square foot retail space in a nice area.
Yeah, not even a surprise. I've always had multiple people, when you start talking about behind the scenes stuff, how surprised they are at how much, not even just how much it costs, but almost how much time you're putting into it. I think that's the other thing, because people just assume, I'm going to run my own business, I'm going to work 40 hours and then go home. And it's totally not like that at all.
Yeah. Just ask my wife.
Yeah, true. So are there other community efforts and whatnot that you used to support that you've kind of had to let go of now because everything that's going on, or even them not operating? Because I kind of want to give a little bit of an insight just to how much individual stores do things with either other businesses or community groups or whatever that may also be affected during all this.
Yeah. I mean, I homeschool my children, and so one of the things I was near and dear to my heart is we used to do a weekly board game club for the homeschool kids, and it was kind of this good community. A lot of kids were Mom would share a story with me that that would be her not a threat, but what would be taken away if she didn't get all of her stuff done. Well, we won't have time to go to the board game thing, right? And it was that special to her, right? And it was just really cool seeing the kids, making connections, friendships, learning new games, and boom, all that just went away, within a week. And so things like that, and then there's a lot of different games that we host for. Magic's obviously the biggest one, but sometimes when you do have these smaller groups that have less venues to play at, they appreciate it more, and it becomes a closer knit group. And so seeing those people or not seeing those people, I should say, it does, it makes it tough to see, like, like how much has been lost. A couple different D&D groups that come throughout the week, and and they're not getting together, and they're doing either online, they're just not doing it at all. So a lot of different stuff like that, and then as far as like programs, you mentioned programs, is that we're the only WPM premium store in Ohio, and that was it was something that my brand aligned with prior to them maybe announcing the program, but it was something that still likewise was very crucial to being designated for the efforts that we were putting into things that we felt mattered, and now they've shown that they feel matter. And quite frankly, all that's for naught right now. It's not doing us any good at all. I was so excited that we were going to be kind of this, hotbed for, Timmy looks up on Event Locator and says, "Where can I go play Magic?" And boom, big gold letters, WPM Premium Store. There we are, and we're that first experience that he gets, and he starts making connections and having a great time, and the events ran well, and just boom, it takes off from there. That's all gone. We don't know when that'll be back. So it's gonna be tough to see where it goes from there.
Yeah, one of the interesting things I've been talking with people about is, are players going to get a greater appreciation for their local game stores after not having it as an opportunity for, I don't know, maybe up to 6 months? Like, how are they going to view that experience where they kind of took it for granted before? They're like, oh, they'll just be there whenever I want to go. It's like, oh, well, are they going to double down and support their communities better? I mean, I think that's going to be one of the interesting things to see.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest, I wouldn't be shocked, to no fault of them, that it could go the other direction too. I think people, we're creatures of habit, and if you're used to sitting around in your underwear on Friday nights, and logging on to Arena, as opposed to, getting around and getting off work and rushing to get something to eat, and then, signing up for the event real quick, and then making deck changes last minute, that after a while, I think people become used to that new lifestyle, and so it may be hard. The only thing I think that probably isn't as much impacted with that is with Magic is the Commander crowd. That's a very social aspect of it. I think with most quarantine, most of them haven't even been necessarily getting together. I've been seeing a lot of people trying to play online, but that doesn't quite translate very well. So we'll probably see, I would think, a stronger return in the more social aspects of the gaming. The competitive grinder, looking for value sort of guy might say, this is just easier to do at home. But we were already starting to see over that going into this too, so it's a tricky time.
Well, some people may want to come out and game just to get away from the family after being cooped up with them for several months.
This is true. It's true.
So yeah, one of the things I joke about a lot is that, even people that have their own businesses tend to have a side hustle doing something else. And I know one of the things you've brought up before that we've talked about is you have kind of an organizer system and whatnot that you've been showing off. So I'll share some of those pictures during this interview as well, so people can kind of see what we're talking about. But how did you come up with that idea, and how's that been going for you?
Yeah, it's been a really cool process. I think a lot of people really enjoy creating, and that's essentially what happened here. Is because a lot of times when people say like, oh, I want to invent something or I want to make something, it's derived from that desire of wanting to just create something. So it's not necessarily fulfilling a need. From my standpoint, it started even in my house when I was, like I said, when I was doing the online orders while still having my professional sales career going. I had kind of like your sort of traditional wire racking that you'd see like in the back room of a kitchen or something like that. And I had my boxes on there, about 4 shelves per rack. You're kind of forced by the constraints of how many 4 rows you can fit on a shelf, or people have different configurations, and that's been one of the interesting things too, is just seeing how many different people in our industry are doing it different ways. But for myself, as our inventory grew, as our orders grew, as we increased the number of people who were, picking cards and mailing out orders and whatnot, the more some of these things kind of like became bigger in our eyes. And so, we got to a point at our old location where we kept on having to move things around to make more room in our inventory room, moving around. Before you know it, it's like, man, I can't imagine we fit all this in here. And so, the gears started turning of like, it wasn't something I was trying to create just to create something, but it was a need that I had. It was a need that I had as someone doing a business and wanting to be more efficient at the way we were doing it. So, we started throwing around ideas, me and the employees of, well, what would that look like? What would be ideal? And when we relocated into the new space, square footage is expensive. So while I wanted to have an orders room that was large enough to grow into still, every square foot mattered. So at that time, prior to opening the new location, I hand built myself out of 2x4s and particle board and all basically the cheapest sort of materials I could find to essentially have something that was kind of in that workable range of, from your shoulders down to your knees, and your wingspan essentially was kind of what I was shooting for. Real quickly after we opened up and started using them, we were first like, wow, these are amazing. And like, we actually cut our pick time down by about a third. And it was like, that's great. Like,
That's huge.
we were spending a lot of labor hours. Yeah. And it's like, this is fast and efficient. So I worked with Stanley Black & Decker, basically the biggest cabinet manufacturer in the world. And we worked together to produce something that was to the specifications of what fulfills our industry. And so I have them myself. I have 11 units, and my staff loves them. It makes picking go fast. My employees are happy because they're not having to strain their eyes, they're not dropping boxes, they're not hurting their knees. So they're happy with it, and then they're saving time on how quick it goes.
No, it's awesome, man. I think it's very cool whenever somebody finds a problem like that. And especially in your case where you went out and worked with a large trusted manufacturer to even build a higher grade item. It's not just, okay, I have this thing to solve a solution. It's like, no, I went out, actually had people put time and effort in to build a quality thing. So hopefully that goes over
Yep.
well for you and people pick them up. So yeah, I want to say, sounds like you're at least making it during this time, doing better than some. So it's awesome. You're actually kind of, sounds like you got ahead of things a little bit too, which is pretty cool. I think this was a type of situation. Matter of fact, even last night on my stream, one of the things we were talking a lot about is how much people are having to make things up on the fly and not really know what's to come and being put in situations they've never had before. And it sounds like you've adjusted pretty well so far.
Yeah, thankfully we've been doing the online orders thing for a long time, so we just kind of had to throttle down in that aspect. But it is important to us to not only from a financial aspect, but from like a value add to the community aspect. That if and when we can kind of get up and running, really kind of excelling at that to make it worth people's time to come out and get those friendships going again and meet new people and try out new games, and share that love of the industry.
Well, cool, Rob. I want to say thank you so much for being my first in this series of interviews that I'm going to be doing. It's kind of different because I had plans to go and visit retailers and do the interviews. So I'm also doing the best I can, like doing them online. So yeah, this was a great conversation, man.
If you ever come out here, definitely love to have you out here, see some of these things, see these cabinets in person.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks again. I'll let you get back to work.
Thank you. Bye.
I want to say thanks again to Rob for coming on, taking time, especially right now with everything going on, to come and share his story and tell us about his business. It's often hard to get some retailers to open up and give you kind of that peek behind the curtain, so to speak, here. But, he was a complete open book there and really told us about some amazing things. Also, if you want to reach Rob or his business, I'm going to have the links down below, so feel free to check that out. Also, if there's any other retailers you'd like me to speak to, have them reach out to me or leave their names down below in the comments, and I'll see if they're interested in doing an interview to give them a chance to get the extra exposure as well. And as usual, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That's going to help us out a bunch as we're working toward hitting 1,000 subscribers. But that's all I have for you today. We'll see you next time.